All right, class, we're in part 3, the financial aspect of merchandising. Let's talk about how buyers and retailers use different measures of productivity to create strategic plans to optimize performance and profits. Productivity is a measure of performance. It compares quantitative data. The amount of goods and services produced over a period of time is referred to as output, with the amount of input used to produce the goods or services. The manufacturing industry commonly uses measures of productivity. Retailers utilize productivity measures when a quantitative relationship between input and output can be numerically defined. When productivity is high, output has been maximized with the minimal investment of input. To increase productivity, output can be increased, input can be decreased, or both input can be decreased and output increased. The ramifications of making adjustments to increase productivity should be assessed. For example, decreasing input can put strain on workers to hit their output goals. When productivity is high, companies have a greater level of efficiency over their ability to turn resources into goods. So, how do you calculate productivity? You divide output by input. So let's apply the productivity formula to this scenario. Eddie's Tees received a large screen printing order for 3,600 t-shirts. Eddie's screen printer works a 9-hour shift. Calculate productivity. How's your calculation coming along? Did you get 400? If so, you are correct. Productivity is 400 T's per hour. The ability to continuously move stock is one of the objectives that retailers have. Stock that turns quickly allows for the store to consistently have fresh merchandise and encourage consumers to purchase immediately. In layman's terms, turnover is how fast merchandise is sold, replenished, and then sold again within a time frame, usually over a 1-year period. High turnover is favorable as it reduces the number of markdowns required to move slow sellers. Turnover goals are generally set by management. A store manager can determine how much in sales is needed to meet this goal, but first they must know their average stock. So, what is average inventory and how is it calculated? It is the average amount of inventory on hand within a time frame. It's calculated by dividing the beginning and ending inventories of a period by 2 or the number of periods. So how do we calculate turnover? We take sales and we divide it by the average inventory. So there are advantages and disadvantages of high turnover. Advantages include there'll always be fresh new merchandise. With a high turnover, stock is constantly being moved out, so new merchandise is being brought in. This also helps to minimize the amount of merchandise that is marked out of stock or marked down. Some of the disadvantages include having a high turnover can indicate that a store has a limited assortment or too little inventory. There's also disadvantages to placing smaller orders to maintain a high inventory. Now, a retailer would be paying the cost of processing orders, tracking them, and paying invoices more than once. They would also miss out on quantity discounts that they would have received if they were placing a larger bulk order. So let's apply the average inventory formula. So let's take a look at this scenario. Calculate the average inventory on hand for Stephanie's Boutique over a 6-month period using the simplified formula. Were you able to figure out what the beginning of the month inventory is for May? Did you get $1,392.86 for the average inventory for Stephanie's Boutique over a 6-month period? If you did, great job. If not, take a moment to go back and recalculate your answer. Continuing on with Stephanie's Boutique, let's calculate her turnover. So Stephanie's Boutique generated $10,000 in sales for the year. Calculate her turnover. Almost done? Did you get 7? Yes? Great job. Stock to sales, or STS. STS provide buyers with a general idea of what a retailer's stock levels should be on a monthly basis and determines the amount of inventory that must be on hand at the beginning of the month to achieve its sales goals. Assortments that are broader will have a higher sales to stock ratio. This is because the amount of inventory carried will be more extensive. As discussed in the text, consider women's shoes, which are generally available in different sizes, colors, and widths. High stock to sales ratio generally mean an inventory surplus, which can have a negative impact on profits due to the following. Markdowns will have to be taken to move excessive product. Sales staff is unable to locate and quickly pull back stock, which can result in lost sales. Backstock can be lost, damaged, or stolen, which leads to items being marked out of stock or recorded as shrink. Visual merchandising appeal is lost. Assortment is too broad, which becomes very overwhelming to consumers. Stock to sales ratio and turnover have an inverse relationship. When turnover is high, stock to sales should be what? You guessed it, low. The opposite is true when turnover is low. How do we calculate our stock to sales ratio? We take our beginning of the month inventory and we divide that by our sales. Are you ready for another application exercise? All right, so Stephanie's boutique had $1,500 in inventory for the month of March. Sales for the month of March were $600. Calculate the stock to sales ratio. Couple more seconds here, guys. Was your answer 2.5? Sales per square foot. So store budgets are based on their sales per square foot. Sales per square foot is used to gauge how efficiently a retailer is using their space. It looks at the amount of sales compared to the size of the space. Square footage is the physical dimensions of the selling space or the overall size of the store. It can include stock rooms, fitting rooms, service areas, and adjacent aisles. Generally, in conventional stores, merchandise categories are allocated by sales per square foot. However, space is not allocated equally amongst the categories. Better performing categories have bigger spaces. The size of the space allocated is determined by performance. So your high volume or high margin goods will get that prime space. So like your cosmetics, jewelry, and leather good categories. Personal space considerations. So aisle width and adequate personal space allow for a comfortable shopping experience. The positioning of merchandise. So optimal positioning of regular or sales price merchandise determined by the retailer. Attitudes towards sales goods. So some retailers prefer to put their sales merchandise up front, while others prefer to use a tactic where they tuck that merchandise further away towards the back of the store, which causes customers to be exposed to the full or higher price items as they walk through the store to get to the sales merchandise. The convenience factor is when retailers put those impulse items on the aisles. Or some of you may be a little bit more familiar with at your local grocery store or your Target or Walmart, how they have those end caps. And you have usually your impulse items on those end caps. Space productivity metrics monitors which categories are selling well. From there, the retailer can make the appropriate adjustments. Another application exercise for sales per square foot. So the square footage of Stephanie's boutique is 500 square feet. The boutique generated $10,000 in sales for the year. Calculate the sales per square foot. All right, so let's see if you guys got the right answer. $20. So the sales per square foot for Stephanie's boutique is $20. Space management is defined as the strategic arrangement of products to maximize sales with the minimum investment of space and fixtures. The appropriate use of space contributes to the success of a retailer. About 65% of retailers use some sort of space management program to help them optimize their shelf space and plan their store layouts. The core principles of space management is used to monitor sales, space performance, and analysis to assess if the space is working in terms of profit. A planogram is a space management tool that is used to ensure merchandise is displayed in a consistent and appealing manner as per the store's layout and merchandise presentation standards. Planograms provide precise detail as to where fixtures and merchandise should be placed and how. They can dictate the arrangement, fold, spacing, and quantity of merchandise that should be displayed per fixture. For apparel retailers, planograms are often reset for each new product line and or in response to slow selling merchandise. All right, so this closes out chapter 9, measures of productivity.